How much will it take to fix her reputation? Next, we argue for another $12 million for emotional harm caused and would never touch her. She's a whack job you would never see. Sustained, repeating aggressively how to dominate a man. He will soon regret even having a penis. Welcome back, guys. So already explosions for the closing day arguments. But the explosions started even before closing arguments with Judge Kaplan threatening Miss Alina Habba with jail time, telling her that she's on the verge of spending time in lockup, with her seemingly laughing it off. On top of that, every single report has the former president shaking his head in agitation, vigorous agitation. Apparently so irritated, so irate at everything that was being said that he stood up and walked out. Of course, causing everything to freeze, where Judge Kaplan said, "Let the record show that Mr. Trump just rose and walked out of the courtroom," where one of his lawyers, Michael Medallo, took his seat, sitting next to Alina Habba. Judge Kaplan again chiming in, saying, "Don't move again." So everything started in the morning a little bit late, and it was pretty clear that everyone was irritated, especially Judge Kaplan. So finally, everyone shows up and they start with Miss Alina Habba trying to introduce some tweets during the 5-hour gap between the article publication and former president's statements. So she wanted to introduce those tweets. Ms. Carroll's lawyers object. Judge Kaplan sides with them, saying this should have been introduced much earlier and telling her that she's not showing these slides. Ms. Habba says, "Your Honor, Attorney Kaplan stipulated." Judge Kaplan jumps in, saying, "Sit down. You're on the verge of spending time in lockup," with Alina Habba appearing to laugh. You can't make this stuff up. Okay, so Roberta Kaplan gives the closing arguments for Ms. Carroll's team. She starts out by saying that the former president's testimony yesterday was brief because he doesn't get to do a do-over. Objection, overruled. This whole case is about how to compensate Ms. Carroll for the two statements and punish Donald Trump. This trial is about getting him to stop once and for all. This trial is also about whether the rules apply to everyone, including Donald Trump, because he has tried to normalize conduct that is abnormal. He claims he had no choice but to break the law and defame her, where she was a beloved columnist. Let's consider that in 2019, he said she needed to pay dearly, that she was in dangerous territory. He has tried to normalize this conduct. Normally, when people lose in court, they change their behavior. Ms. Carroll's success as an advice columnist obviously relied on her audience's trust, something she has built over decades. But she had one truth too painful to share, that in the spring of 1996, Donald Trump sexually assaulted her. She tried to suppress the whole thing. Her 274-page book contained 9 pages about the former president, where New York Magazine published an excerpt. And this is when Donald Trump told lie after lie after lie. At this point, they start displaying to the jurors a bunch of statements, defamatory statements made by the former president, in this case, where he says that he never met this person. Attorney Roberta Kaplan continues that the former president was lying and trying to destroy Ms. Carroll. She says that on the White House lawn, he repeated the lie that he did not know her, where he threatened her, where he said that people need to be very careful because they're playing in dangerous territory. He also said, "She's not my type." This was designed to humiliate Ms. Carroll. But let's remember that he mistook Ms. Carroll for Marla Trump. At this time, they showed the video of the deposition to the jurors, where you can hear the former president saying that that was Marla, saying that he claimed that the photo was blurry. It is not. This is classic Donald Trump. Now, to the damages, it's obvious that Ms. Carroll suffered harm, where Ms. Carroll now only has 1,800 paying customers on Substack, where you heard Professor Humphrey give you estimates as to the harm. Estimates between $7 and $12 million to repair reputation, smaller than other programs as she claimed. Objection, not on the record. Roberta Kaplan says it is. Judge Kaplan sides with Ms. Carroll's team. She continues, imagine being Ms. Carroll in that small hotel room on 10th Avenue, struck by fear and sadness. The man who attacked her before was coming for her again. She wanted to close the curtains out of fear. She could not, so she hung up her suit and was unable to sleep. Every time she looked at her phone, there were more threats waiting for her, where she tweeted, "The world needs more love," but the responses were, "You're a cunt," and "No way that Trump touched this woman." And ever since 2019, these have not stopped. The dollar amount to compensate her has to be very, very large. At least $12 million for the reputational repair, and probably more. And how much money is it going to take to get Donald Trump to stop? Where punitive damages are meant to punish the malicious. He said that she made everything up, that she was a disgrace, where he threatened her twice and unleashed millions and millions of others to flood her with hate. We played the deposition for you, where he called her mentally sick and even threatened to sue her. Now watch this CNN town hall. They play the clip where the former president is heard saying that his poll numbers were up. The audience cheers in the video, and he says, "I have no idea who this woman is. She's a whack job." That's in the video. Attorney Roberta Kaplan continues, "Did you guys see that?" Where the audience laughed. This made Ms. Carroll feel horrible. And since then, his attacks have even intensified. Even while Ms. Carroll was on the stand still. He was holding a press conference while you guys were still in the jury box. In the clip, he's heard saying it's a rigged deal. It's all a made-up, fabricated story. She continues, even last Thursday, he said, "I've said it 1,000 times. I've never heard of Jean Carroll and would never touch her." Are you kidding me? 1,000 times. It's up to you to make him stop. He's very, very wealthy. His brand, he even said his brand is worth up to $10 billion. Justice Mar-a-Lago, he said, is worth $1.5 billion. Objection, his lawyer says these are not personal assets. Overruled. On top of that, the jury will remember what was said. Attorney Roberta Kaplan continues, saying you can award punitive damages. Yesterday, my cross-examination showed he did not show up to the first trial, but he came to this one because he cares about the money, where your decision is the only hope. He can't even deny objection. Overruled. He can't deny the first trial. The former president has been famous for many, many years. The so-called gap, the 5-hour gap. Give me a break. The White House at the time was run by Mr. Trump. Judge Kaplan will tell you that a person who has been defamed has no duty to mitigate, where the former president's defense will argue that she had a duty to keep her mouth shut. It will take an unusually large punitive damages award to make former president stop. The one thing that Donald Trump cares about is money. The civil trial last year found Donald Trump sexually abused and defamed Miss Carroll, and he has continued to defame her. The sexual assault happened, and Donald Trump's denials and vicious accusations against her were all complete lies. Mr. Trump has actually claimed that Miss Carroll is the one that has actually benefited. And it takes a lot of gall to make that kind of argument, where even his lawyers have claimed that she's a fame-seeking monster. Objection. Judge Kaplan says, overruled, and the jury will remember what she said. On behalf of Miss Carroll and our whole team, we thank you for sitting and paying attention to the ugly evidence. How much will it take to fix her reputation? Estimated between $7 and $12 million. We argue $12 million. Next, we argue for another $12 million for emotional harm caused. But it should probably be more. On punitive damages, I will not tell you how much, but you can consider his vast wealth. He's worth billions and billions of dollars. Punitive damages will take an unusually high award to make him stop. When you deliberate later today, please consider we have a former president of the United States of America who has shown contempt for the rule of law, and even our justice system. Please stand up for Miss E. Jean Carroll and the rule of law. If not, none of us will be safe from bullies. Right now, you have the opportunity, maybe even the responsibility, to put an end to all of this with your verdict. Make him pay for what he has done. Now is the time to make him pay dearly. Alrighty, so that was the closing arguments for the plaintiff, for Miss Carroll. Next up is Miss Alina Habba. She's lucky that Judge Kaplan didn't throw her in jail. She starts, "Ladies and gentlemen, counsel tried to tell you what my arguments are. I've never seen that. We have watched as Miss Carroll has tried to pin Twitter trolls on the President of the United States." Here he is reacting to this whole thing last year. They played a video clip where he says this whole thing is a witch hunt. Ms. Habba continues, "I want to thank the plaintiff's counsel for playing that video clip for me. Yes, that is how the former president feels. Imagine a world where someone accuses you and you can't speak out. Where her counsel said that Miss Carroll was defending herself. She said that just now. A right to defend yourself. Good for me, but not for thee. He has not wavered because it is the truth." Objection. Sustained, with Judge Kaplan saying that has been proven to be false, and I will instruct the jury. Ms. Habba continues, "Her bankrollers are paying." Objection. Sustained. Judge Kaplan, "Ms. Habba, if you continue, you may face consequences." Attorney Alina Habba continues, saying that the White House denial statement of the article Ms. Carroll spread all over social media is not part of this suit. That Ms. Carroll cannot prove causation, where Ms. Carroll gave the story to the New York magazine, The Cut, where she said that they knew how to break the news, the story, where she was looking to make a splash. On June the 21st of 2019, it went live, 12:14, where it ignited a media storm. At the time, President Trump did not know for 5 hours. And before he knew, a flood of tweets responded to Ms. Carroll, all before President Trump even made a statement, where she said there were a lot of messages of love and support, but also attacks. This 5-hour gap is essential. You're not here to pay Ms. Carroll for mean tweets that people wrote to her. They have to prove a direct connection. This is the beauty and danger of free speech in America, where a president does not control the speech of others. Statements made before and after the president made his statements said that Ms. Carroll did all of this to promote her book. Even her friends said that. Ms. Alina Habba says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I myself have received 3 threats this week alone." Judge Kaplan chimes in saying, "Ms. Habba, that was inappropriate. The jury will disregard that. They only have 6 threats, all from only 2023. Why not before?" She says she deleted them, or perhaps they never existed. She deleted the evidence that she now wants you to rely on. The evidence is not here. When she took the stand, she said she received death threats the day of the release of the article from The Cut, where she said she did not call the police, but she hung her suit pants, in place of the curtain. She didn't tell anyone, but she hung her pants. Focus on the details, not the noise. She even said that New York City, Midtown, was the safest place on earth, where she was freely walking around New York City. There are 2 different versions of E. Jean Carroll. There's one where even her friend told you about, and there's the other one that comes to court to collect money from a former president. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard him testify that he never intended to cause her harm. He did not intend to hurt her. All he did was tell his truth. Objection. Judge Kaplan says he'll deal with that in his instruction. Ms. Habba continues, "My feelings would also get hurt. But this happens when you are a public figure. But she has always craved fame. She expressed this privately to her friend, Miss Birnbach. Just ask E. Jane. She said she was fabulous. She was carefree. That she was fine as wine. Sleeping until noon." Sorry to interrupt, but Ms. Carroll said the same thing, sleeping until noon, in the Elle video, the profile video that's up on YouTube, made by Elle Magazine. That's pretty interesting. She continues, "She didn't think you would see that, but that's her best friend. But on the stand, she claimed it wasn't true. And she has not suffered professionally. She did not lose her advice column because of my client. She lost it because of Elle Magazine, conveniently before she came out with this claim." Objection. Sustained. So she's showing messages to the jurors. She continues, "Another tweet of hers, what can be done about the penis? I'm mortified. I'm mortified. I have to repeat this." Here's another one of her tweets, how to dominate a man. Dominate a man. She did not take this down, where she wrote, "He will soon regret even having a penis." Is that a threat? Objection. Sustained. But now she claims that other people's tweets made her look scandalous. But the numbers don't lie. These are the views and the tweets sent to Miss Carroll. 5 views, 15 views. These are the ones that her team picked to show you her damages. She's making more money now, today, than she was in June of 2019 when she brought all of this up. She hit her financial rock bottom, where Elle magazine cut her salary in half. No more dinners at Elaine's. Just a cottage in the woods of upstate New York, just like Montana, where she had been writing her book for years, but then decided to put President Trump's name in there while he was in the White House. She sat in her cabin in the woods, far from New York glamour. So she made her way back to New York, releasing to New York Magazine, to The Cut, lunch with journalists. Even her best friend said that Miss Carroll loved the adulation from this lawsuit, even going as far as saying that Miss Carroll is a drug addict and the drug is herself, saying all of this in a message that she thought you would never see. Do you think she would really want her old reputation back, to go back to the cabin in the woods with 12,000 followers? She had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Their team picked as an expert Professor Humphrey. Her report was riddled with mistakes, where we found errors that she could not. Objection sustained. Ms. Habba says, "Your Honor." Judge Kaplan sustained, repeating aggressively. Professor Humphrey said that Republicans were more likely to not believe Ms. Carroll, more likely than non-Republicans. Well, duh. Thank you, Professor Humphrey. Do you need an expert to make that point? People are entitled to their opinions. Professor Humphrey has never done a reputation repair campaign. During the trial, Professor Humphrey changed her settings for social media, setting them all to private. She could have done all of this before. Imagine you living your life. You have a beautiful wife, an important job to do, and then you're hit with allegations. There are no facts. Objection sustained. Under the First Amendment, you have the right to speak. Objection, ironic timing, sustained. Ms. Habba continues, "You've heard the objections. You've heard me being told to sit down." Objection. Judge Kaplan, move on. This is not about Ms. Carroll or former President Donald Trump. This is about Twitter trolls in their mother's basement. Ms. Carroll has been made whole already. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry you've had to spend so much time on all of this. Thank you for your time. And that was the end of her closing argument. A rebuttal by Ms. Carroll's other lawyer, Sean Crowley, the other lawyer who did their clerkship under Judge Kaplan. Okay, so she starts, "I'm going to follow the court's rules, unlike Mr. Trump and her lawyer." Ms. Habba said there was a 5-hour gap, but there's no evidence of this gap. Objection, overruled. She showed you only 5 tweets. Objection, overruled. Donald Trump assaulted Ms. Carroll. Donald Trump is saying she asked for it. Have we not moved on? She didn't ask to be called ugly or a liar. Ms. Carroll did not ask for death threats. She gave interviews because she had to defend herself. She brought this lawsuit to get him to stop. You can't equate their conduct. When Donald Trump told his lies, he was breaking the law. And he's still breaking the law to this day. Objection, overruled. The former president is responsible. What could be more on brand for Donald Trump than malice? Ouch. He is breaking the law. Objection, overruled. You can respond to charges by staying silent or apologize. If he had done that, do you think people would have come after Ms. Carroll? They're suggesting that Ms. Carroll has to show that she has been broken for 5 years. And every day she shows a brave face. She was showing no harm. That makes no sense. 2 things can be true at the same time. Trump's initial denial, which was issued by the White House. Objection, overruled. The denial his followers latch onto, where Donald Trump kept defaming Ms. Carroll. Objection, overruled. They keep coming after her. No causation? Give me a break. Concerning Professor Humphrey, she was the only expert here. Objection, overruled. Professor Humphrey's mislabeling is a distraction. Their last complaint was that she did not consider the positive responses she received. This shows that they don't understand what Professor Humphrey was trying to show in this case. The law of defamation is about protecting the people from harm when people lie. You only have to change the minds of the people who believe the lie. Ms. Habba went on about deleting messages related to death threats. Ms. Habba got this wrong to mislead you. Ms. Carroll had no duty to not delete. Objection. Sustained. Wow. 1. In part. Judge Kaplan said in part. Up to the jurors. Ms. Crowley continues. Ms. Carroll said she deleted some of the nasty replies. She had no obligation to keep them. I think we can all understand why she would not want to. These are death threats from people who believed his lies and expanded on his threats. You're going to hear Judge Kaplan's instructions on the law. Then you get to decide how much Donald Trump will pay. He wants you to blame her, that he is the victim here. Her so-called salacious tweets. She was responding to readers' questions where they want to stop her, where according to the defense, they get to ignore a guilty verdict. You've seen how he behaved at trial. He walked out while Ms. Kaplan was talking. This is not a political rally. This is a court of law. Donald Trump is not the victim. Make him pay enough so he will stop. Thank you. And that was the end of the rebuttal closing arguments. Then Judge Kaplan delivers all the charges, the instructions to the jurors.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are not allowed to be stripped of every defense that you have. You are not allowed to be told that you can't bring it up. And imagine a point where a judge tells the lawyer before your client, the former president of the United States, the leading candidate and obvious nominee for the Republican Party, before he takes the stand to defend himself, Ms. Habba, tell me the questions you're going to ask in open court and tell me exactly what he's going to respond. And then edited my questions, edited the response he was allowed to give. And guess what my client did? He took the stand. He abided by the rules of this corrupt system that I have seen. We will immediately appeal. We will set aside that ridiculous jury. And I just want to remind you all of one thing. I will continue with President Trump to fight for everybody's First Amendment right to speak. Everybody's a right to defend themselves when they are wrongfully accused and to be able to say, I didn't do it. And to double and triple and quadruple down and say, this is wrong. This is wrong. But we are in the state of New York. We are in a New York jury, and that is why we are seeing these witch hunts, these hoaxes, as he calls them. And this is another one of them. Be brought in New York, in states where they know they will get juries like this.